Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into the really enchanting world of a truly remarkable feline, the Siberian cat.
Yeah.
You know the ones, those majestic fluff balls from Russia. They're known not just for their stunning looks and surprising cuddliness, but also for some pretty fascinating science that sets them apart.
Hmm.
And you've handed us a great stack of sources for this deep dive. Everything from genetic research papers, guides on ethical breeding, official breed standards, and just lots of really comprehensive articles about the breed itself.
Yeah, it's a good collection.
Our mission is simple, really. Just unpack all this material and pull out the absolute core nuggets of knowledge about the Siberian. We want to understand their journey, from the wild forest to our homes, what makes their appearance and personality so unique.
Right.
Dive into what the science tells us about their health and those hypoallergenic claims everyone talks about.
Yes, that's a big one.
And get some practical guidance on how to responsibly bring one into your life.
It's a great set of materials, and it really lets us see how this breed, shaped initially by nature's pretty tough demands, has been further understood and, well, refined through careful breeding and modern scientific inquiry.
Exactly. Let's dive in and find those crucial takeaways. So first off, where do these magnificent cats actually come from? Our sources trace them back centuries, like deep into the Russian forests. They are Russia's native forest cat.
A natural landrace breed from Siberia.
Right, with records going all the way back to around, 1000 AD?
Something like that, yeah. It's clear nature played a huge role in their initial design.
That idea of a landrace is key, isn't it?
It is. It basically means they weren't, initially created by humans trying to select for specific traits. They just evolved naturally over a long time, adapting to that really harsh Siberian environment.
Which explains those incredible survival traits.
Precisely.
Interesting. The sources mentioned they actually popped up outside Russia relatively early on, like in a German book in 1864, and some English cat show books in the late 1800s.
That's right. Sometimes called the Russian long-haired cat.
But it seems their distinct identity got a bit diluted back then.
Yeah.
When they were crossed with other breeds.
Yeah, that can happen. And we look at the timeline in the sources. The breed's formal development and sort of push for recognition outside Russia really took off much, much later.
Okay.
Sources point to the period after the fall of the Soviet Union, so late 1980s, as being really pivotal. It was like a second introduction, you could say, of the pure breed lines to the West.
Ah, okay. And that second wave clearly made a big impact. By 2006, sources confirmed they were recognized by, every major cat registry globally.
Fully recognized.
And they've just skyrocketed in popularity since then. Even cracking the top 10 most registered breeds in big associations like the CFA by 2022, and ranking high in Europe, too.
It does make you wonder, though, doesn't it? Given that popularity surge and the global recognition, why do sources still describe them as relatively rare outside Eastern Europe?
That's a good question. What do they suggest?
Well, a couple of factors are mentioned. One is the logistical difficulty and just the expense of importing true foundation lines from Russia. And also the common practice among pedigree breeders of spaying or neutering pet kittens early.
Ah, so that limits the pool of cats available for future breeding.
Exactly. It keeps the gene pool, particularly outside Russia, maybe smaller than the popularity suggests.
That's a fascinating point about rarity despite popularity. And speaking of origins, here's a cool nugget from the genetic studies you pointed out in the sources.
Yeah.
Siberians are genetically related to Norwegian forest cats.
The studies confirm that link.
But their striking physical similarities, the size, the coat, aren't necessarily because they're recent cousins.
Right. Sources suggest it's more about convergent evolution, meaning both breeds develop similar traits independently because they face similar environmental pressures.
Like those really harsh, cold climates.
Exactly. Nature kind of found similar solutions for survival in both places. Pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay, let's move from their origins to what makes them look so distinctive. According to the breed standards detailed in our sources, the overall impression of a Siberian cat is one of roundness and circles.
Soft lines, not sharp angles. It's a key descriptor.
And sources emphasize that while they're described as medium to medium large, you really notice their heft or solid weight when you pick one up.
Oh, yeah. They feel substantial. The standards give specific weight ranges, males typically being larger, around, 5 to 7.5 kilograms?
Yeah, sometimes pushing 9 kilos. And females, a bit lighter, maybe 4 to 5 kilograms, maxing out around 7.5.
That solid build makes sense for a forest survivor cat, doesn't it?
Totally.
Eh?
Sources note their body is muscular and strong, medium in length, and there's a specific detail. Their hind legs are slightly longer than their front legs.
Ah, yes, giving them that subtle arch in their back.
Exactly. And sources say this contributes significantly to their incredible agility.
Mm-hmm. And their ability to leap quite high. They're powerful jumpers.
Powerful is right.
And another key point, especially for anyone thinking of getting one, or for judges, is that they have quite slow physical maturation.
Right. They take their time growing up.
They really do. Can take up to 5 years to reach their full size and development, which the breed standards actually account for when judging younger cats.
Good to know.
Right.
Okay, let's zoom in on the head and face. Sources describe their head as a modified wedge shape, but again, with those characteristic rounded contours.
Always that roundness.
Broad forehead, full rounded muzzle. And their eyes are large, almost round, very expressive.
Yeah, lovely eyes.
Set slightly angled towards the base of their ears.
Yeah.
And the ears themselves. Medium large, wide at the base, rounded tips, and they tilt slightly forward.
Ideally set quite wide apart on the head, too.
Got it. And of course the coat. It's got to be their most iconic feature.
Oh, absolutely. Sources are very precise about it. It's a well-developed, incredibly dense triple coat.
Okay, break that down.
You've got the outer guard hair, then the on hair, and the soft down hair underneath. The guard hairs are specifically water repellent.
Ah, a clear nod to their origins. Makes sense.
Definitely. It's moderately long to long-haired, gets much thicker in winter, as you'd expect.
Doesn't need a lot of grooming.
Well, sources confirm it needs regular grooming, maybe more during shedding season to prevent matting, but we'll get into the specifics of that later. Shedding happens twice a year, usually triggered by changes in day length.
Okay, so how do they stack up, size-wise, against other large breeds people might know, like Maine Coons or Norwegians?
That's a good comparison. Our sources provide some context. Generally, Maine Coons tend to be larger overall.
Okay.
Norwegian forest cats are typically even bigger than Maine Coons, though there can be, some overlap between a really big Siberian and maybe a smaller Norwegian.
Right, individuals vary.
Exactly. Ragdolls can also grow surprisingly large, sometimes bigger than most Siberians. And Bengals, while they might be similar in weight sometimes, have a totally different body type, much leaner, more elongated.
That comparison really helps put their size in perspective. And what about color?
Well, sources state pretty much all the standard Western coat colors and patterns are genetically possible in Siberians, with or without white markings.
What's the most common?
The most common is probably the black or brown mackerel tabby. But interestingly, most registries specifically don't allow colors like chocolate, lilac, cinnamon, or fawn. And sources highlight some unique Siberian colors linked to a specific gene allele found only in this breed, sunshine, which gives this lovely golden tone,
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
and bimetallic, which is a kind of silver-golden mix.
Wow. Okay, what about solid white Siberians? Especially the ones with blue eyes.
Sources clarify that solid white is a traditional color, and the blue or odd-colored eyes in those white cats are due to the absence of melanin pigment, which is separate from the color point gene.
Right. But there's a health link there, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Sources strongly link white cats, particularly those with blue eyes, across many breeds, not just Siberians, to a higher risk of genetic deafness.
Which is exactly why testing is so important.
Crucial. Specific hearing tests like BAER testing are really vital for white kittens, and some registries even make it mandatory. It's a serious health consideration.
Absolutely. And speaking of color points, sources get specific about the Neva masquerade. What's the story there?
Right. The Neva masquerade is simply the color point variant of the Siberian.
That's so genetically a Siberian.
Genetically, yes. They carry the Siamese color point gene, which gives them those distinctive darker points, face, ears, paws, tail, and always those bright blue eyes.
Okay. But some registries treat them differently.
Some list it as a separate breed, others group them together with traditional Siberians. It varies. Sources even mention recent studies suggesting there might be subtle differences in things like body language and vocalizations between the traditional Siberians and the Neva masquerades.
Huh. That's really specific. Okay, moving past their impressive looks, what are Siberians actually like as companions to live with?
Our sources paint a really consistent and, frankly, very appealing picture. They're described generally as friendly, fearless, quite playful, and also pretty docile.
What stands out from the sources is that often mentioned dog-like behavior.
Yes, that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
They're described as incredibly affectionate and genuinely loyal to their families.
Like really bonded.
Very bonded. Sources even say they pick things up easily, they're smart, and are known to enjoy playing games like fetching.
Fetching. Okay, that's definitely dog-like. Sources also say they're very social. They love being right in the middle of whatever the family's doing.
Involved.
They adapt well, but they really seem to thrive on attention and interaction. And because they stay kitten-like for quite a while, with that slow maturity,
Right, years.
they remain very active and apparently need stimulating toys or food puzzles to keep their intelligent minds busy. Otherwise, they might get bored.
That makes sense. And here's a charming little quirk mentioned in the sources. Unlike a lot of cats, Siberians are often fascinated by water. They apparently don't mind getting a bit wet.
Really? Maybe those water-repellent guard hairs make it less of a big deal for them.
Could be. It's a fun trait.
What about their voice? Are they loud?
Sources say they're not necessarily loud, but they are quite vocal. They use a wide range of sounds.
Like what?
They're known for these lovely sort of melodic chirps and trills, and often have very deep, resonant purrs. Communicative, but maybe not noisy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And personality differences between males and females.
Sources suggest that while, individuals always vary, the core personalities of males and females are generally pretty similar, though some people perceive females as being maybe a little more elegant or refined in their movements.
Interesting nuance.
Okay.
Let's shift gears now to health. What do our sources reveal about the Siberian's overall health profile?
Well, they generally describe it as a relatively healthy breed, which they attribute partly to its natural landrace origins, meaning it has pretty high genetic diversity, actually comparable to random-bred domestic cats.
That high genetic variation is usually a good sign for general health, right?
It is, definitely. What's fascinating here, though, is that while one large study mentioned in the sources found them to have a low overall risk for common illnesses compared to many other purebreds,
Okay, that's good.
they did have the highest risk among purebreds specifically for injury.
Injury, why is that?
Sources link that higher injury rate directly to their energetic, athletic, and adventurous personalities. Basically, they're just more likely to get themselves into scrapes.
Oh, okay. The daredevils of the cat world.
Something like that. The same study also indicated lower incidence rates for conditions affecting things like the endocrine system, ears, neurological issues, and cancers.
Good.
But a potentially higher incidence in locomotor issues, so bones, joints, and some female reproductive problems.
Right. So this raises a crucial question. How is modern science contributing to understanding and improving the health of this breed specifically?
That's where it gets really interesting. Sources highlight the significant work being done through collaborations like the Cat Health Network. They're using advanced genetic tools like high-density gene chips to study predispositions to diseases in various breeds, and Siberians are part of that research.
Okay, so what specific areas are they looking at?
Yes, the sources detail several key research projects relevant to cat health, with implications for breeds like the Siberian. This includes work to create a much more detailed genetic map of the cat genome overall, which improves all the research tools.
Right.
Researchers are actively studying hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, HCM, that serious heart condition in breeds, including Siberians and Maine Coons, trying to find the genetic basis.
Okay, HCM's a big one.
It is. They've also identified a new, likely genetically complex form of polycystic kidney disease, PKD, in Maine Coons, and are mapping regions for other forms seen in breeds like Persians and Bengals.
And PKD can affect Siberians too.
Yes, and sources specifically note that recent studies mention the potential for PKD to transfer from Neva masquerades into the broader Siberian population due to crossbreeding. So testing is really important there too.
Got it. What else?
They're also looking into things like genetic factors for coat texture, like wavy or curly hair, characterizing feline blood types more fully, which is critical for safe transfusions and preventing certain problems in newborn kittens.
Right, like transfusion reaction.
Exactly. And research on the dominant white gene and deafness, they've found a relevant genetic region for the white coat, but haven't yet pinpointed a single mutation strongly linked to deafness in that specific spot.
So it's complex.
It suggests it might be more complex, maybe multiple genes or mutations involved. Sources stress that finding the specific mutation would be a huge help for breeders to test cats accurately.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are studies on things like catnip response. Those sources say they didn't identify a specific gene for that, and feline orofacial pain syndrome in Burmese cats. It's a broad effort.
Wow, that's a lot of research.
It is. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, all this research really underscores exactly why genetic testing is so vital for responsible breeding.
Makes sense.
Sources on ethical practices list specific recommended tests for Siberians. Typically, this includes screening parent cats for HCM via echocardiogram and genetic tests for PK-DEF, that's pyruvate kinase deficiency, and PKD.
And the hearing test for white cats.
And as we mentioned, BAER testing for deafness is essential for white cats. Responsible breeders use these tests to screen their breeding cats before they have kittens, actively working to reduce the risk of passing on these hereditary diseases.
Okay, that's a really important point for anyone looking for a kitten. Let's tackle what is maybe the most frequently asked question about Siberians.
I think I know where you're going.
Are they hypoallergenic? Our sources give us a really clear, scientifically backed answer on this.
And it's a nuanced answer, isn't it? This raises an important point right up front. No cat breed is truly 100% hypoallergenic.
Why not?
Simple reason. All cats produce FeLD1. That's the main allergen most people with cat allergies react to, and it's found in their saliva, their dander, their urine. Basically, all cats make it.
Okay, so that's the baseline. FeLD-T, and this is where the Siberian is bangling. Different sources explain they're often categorized as low-level allergenic.
Right, and this isn't just, anecdotal. The science suggests that the specific genes in Siberians that are responsible for producing FeLD1 have undergone significant mutations over time. Meaning the result is they tend to produce much smaller amounts of this FeLD1 allergen compared to many other cat breeds.
Okay, so less of the stuff that makes people sneeze.
Pretty much. And studies actually support this. One study mentioned in your sources found that over half the Siberians tested had significantly lower FeLD1 levels than a control group of non-Siberian cats.
Wow, over half.
And several individuals in that study had exceptionally low counts. However, and this is important, as the sources note, a small percentage in that same study did show high allergen counts. So there's still variation within the breed.
Okay, so it's not a guarantee, but the odds are better.
That's a good way to put it. The takeaway for allergy sufferers is that many people with mild to moderate cat allergies might find they don't react to a Siberian, or maybe have a much milder reaction.
But not for severe allergies necessarily.
For severe allergies, you could definitely still react, especially with direct contact like licking. So the strongest recommendation from the sources is always test your own sensitivity first.
How do you do that?
Spend time with the specific cat you're interested in, or ideally its parents, before you commit. See how you react over an hour or two. And, of course, if you have severe allergies, talk to your doctor or allergist beforehand.
Good advice.
Sources also offer some finer points about FeLD1 levels in Siberians specifically. They might produce a bit more during certain times.
Like when?
Like late pregnancy and early nursing in females. Also during kittenhood, apparently, the allergen plays some role in development. And levels can also increase during their big shedding seasons, twice a year.
Ah, okay. And anything lower the levels?
Yes. Sterilization spaying or neutering is noted as generally tending to lower allergen production.
That's really useful info for managing potential reactions. And if you do have allergies but decide, okay, a Siberian might work for me, sources offer practical tips for living together more comfortably.
Makes sense. What kind of tips?
Well, personal measures, like washing your hands after petting the cat, trying to avoid letting them lick you too much, maybe using special allergen wipes on the cat's fur occasionally, and being really diligent about cleaning the litter box regularly, since FeLD1 is in urine and feces too.
Right, reducing exposure.
And for your home environment. Things like using HEPA filters in your heating cooling system and in air purifiers. Vacuuming, often, preferably with a vacuum that has a HEPA filter itself. Maybe minimizing carpets and heavy drapes where allergens can collect. And possibly training your cat to stay off certain furniture, like your bed.
All very sensible steps to just lower the overall allergen load in the house. Good tips. Now, what about grooming that incredible triple coat? Does low allergen mean low maintenance?
Sources say, surprisingly, they're quite easy to groom.
Really? With all that fur?
Yeah. Despite the density, their coat apparently doesn't mat as easily as some other long-haired breeds. So regular brushing, maybe once or twice a week, is usually enough. Although you'll probably need more frequent sessions during those big shedding periods we mentioned.
Okay, so manageable. What about bathing?
Occasional bathing is fine, especially since, as we heard, they often don't mind water. But sources advise not to overdo it, as it can strip natural oils.
Yeah.
And of course, regular teeth cleaning and periodic nail trims are essential routine care for any cat.
Right. And diet must play a big role in coat health and maybe even dander production too, doesn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Sources really emphasize this. Cats are obligate carnivores.
Meaning they must eat meat.
Exactly. Their diet has to be predominantly animal protein. Think meat and fish making up well over 50% of it. These provide the specific essential nutrients cats need that they just can't get from plants. Sources strongly caution against diets high in carbohydrates or using ingredients like grains, vegetables, or plant proteins as the main protein source,
Why is that bad?
because it can lead to all sorts of problems in cats: digestive upset, obesity, metabolic issues like diabetes, and these health problems can definitely impact coat condition and shedding.
So, a species-appropriate, high-protein, meat-based diet is really key for their overall well-being and for maintaining that beautiful, healthy coat.
Exactly. Okay, so now if after learning all this, someone listening is thinking, wow, a Siberian might be the right furry addition to my family. Our sources provide some really detailed guidance on finding one responsibly. And this applies whether you're seeking a purebred kitten from a breeder or considering adoption.
And it's definitely worth emphasizing, just like the sources do, that while researching ethical breeders is vital if you want a specific breed kitten, you should absolutely check your local animal shelters and rescue groups first. You might be surprised at the wonderful cats, sometimes even purebreds or mixes, waiting there for a home.
That's a great point. Always consider adoption. But if you are going the breeder route for a purebred Siberian, sources stress that a pedigree is essential. It's basically the cat's birth certificate and family tree.
Right, proof of breed identity.
It shows its ancestry for several generations, and it must be issued by a reputable cat registry like TICA, CFA, those big organizations. You should be able to check that the breeder is actually registered with one of them.
And the pedigree helps verify things, like avoiding close inbreeding. There are even tools online, like PawPeds mentioned in sources, that can help calculate inbreeding coefficients from a pedigree.
Good tools. Sources are also crystal clear. There is no DNA test that can reliably determine a cat's breed, and any breeder asking for extra money just for the pedigree, that's a huge red flag.
Definitely suggests a backyard breeder, not someone reputable. But, as sources also caution, just having a pedigree doesn't automatically guarantee the breeder is ethical in all their practices.
That's a really important distinction. What do sources consistently highlight as a non-negotiable sign of an ethical breeder?
The kitten's age when it leaves the breeder. They are emphatic about this. Kittens must stay with their mother and siblings until they are at least 12 weeks old.
12 weeks minimum.
Minimum. Ideally, even 14 weeks. This time is absolutely vital for them to learn crucial social skills from their mom and litter mates.
And selling them earlier.
Selling kittens younger than 12 weeks is a major red flag. Sources say it can lead to significant behavioral problems later in life, like fear, aggression, or improper litter box use.
Wow, okay. That's critical advice.
Yeah.
Health is another huge factor ethical breeders prioritize, right?
Paramount. They should provide a detailed health record for the kitten. This should show proof of core vaccinations, deworming, flea prevention, and that the kitten is microchipped.
And testing the parents.
Absolutely. Sources are very strong on this. The parent cats must be tested for infectious diseases like feline leukemia virus, FLV, and feline immunodeficiency virus, FIV. And crucially, you must ask to see the proof, the actual negative test results for the parents. Don't just take their word for it.
Okay, demand proof. Good tip.
And as we discussed in the health section, breed-specific genetic testing for the parents' screening for HEM, PKDEF, PKDA plus blood typing, and for white cats, that BAER hearing test. These are all practices mentioned in the sources as hallmarks of a responsible breeder.
Got it. What about getting to know the breeder themselves?
Sources strongly advise this. Spend time talking to them. They should be open and happy to discuss their breeding goals. You know, are they genuinely trying to improve the breed's health and temperament? What are their priorities?
Ask questions.
Ask lots of questions about the kitten's personality, how they were raised and socialized. And it's also a good sign if they ask you lots of questions. They should want to ensure you're a good, responsible home for one of their kittens.
Makes sense. It's a matchmaking process.
It really is. Sources also mention that mandatory breeder training programs exist in some countries or regions, which can be another positive indicator of commitment.
And visiting. Should you visit the breeder's home?
Highly recommended, yes. Ideally, arrange a visit when the kittens are around 2 months old, after their first vaccinations. You want to see where the kittens are being raised.
What are you looking for?
You want to see them in a clean, stimulating, in-home environment, interacting with the family, not kept in cages. Sources explicitly state that finding kittens primarily housed in cages is a huge red flag. You should also meet the mother cat, see her condition and temperament.
Okay, no cages. Big warning sign.
Massive warning sign. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of responsible ownership and breeding, a good ethical breeder will use a contract.
What should be in the contract?
Sources say the contract should protect both you and the cat. It should include clauses stating things like the kitten cannot be resold or surrendered to a shelter, and importantly, that the breeder will take the cat back at any point in its life if you can no longer care for it for any reason.
That's a big commitment from the breeder.
It is, and it shows they stand behind their kittens. A clause requiring you to spay or neuter a pet-quality kitten by a certain age, or providing the kitten already altered, is also standard practice mentioned in sources. This helps prevent accidental litters and irresponsible breeding.
Right. So finally, sources list some common red flags to actively watch out for when you're looking.
Yeah, things to make you pause.
Like we said, kittens kept in cages. Prices that seem way too low compared to other reputable breeders, or sometimes suspiciously high with claims of rare features. Offers to ship a kitten immediately, often internationally, without ever meeting you or asking many questions.
Big red flag.
Breeders who seem to be raising many different breeds of cats or dogs, it can be hard to specialize properly. Buying from pet shops is also discouraged, as sources say they often source animals from large-scale commercial breeders or kitten mills.
Avoid pet shop kittens.
Or just unbelievable claims about a cat's rarity or unique qualities used to justify a high price. Sources caution being extra vigilant with popular breeds like Siberians, because their high demand unfortunately attracts scammers.
It really all boils down to doing your homework thoroughly. Choosing a cat, especially a purebred, is a significant commitment. It could be 15, maybe even 20 years.
It's a long time.
It is. So making a responsible, informed choice ensures you're getting a healthy, well-socialized companion, and crucially, that you're not inadvertently supporting unhealthy or unethical breeding practices.
And rescue is still an option.
Always. Sources mention that breed-specific rescue groups, like the Siberian Cat Rescue Group, exist specifically to help Siberians in need. They rehome cats and kittens, sometimes rescuing them from pretty bad situations like puppy mills, which just highlights the ongoing need for rescue efforts, especially as the breed's popularity grows.
Wow, okay. We have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
From their ancient roots as this, rugged landrace shaped by the Siberian wilderness, all the way to their modern status as these beloved, scientifically studied companions. We've explored what makes their roundness and circles and that dense triple coat so unique, what kind of delightful, almost dog-like personalities they tend to have, delved deep into the science behind their health profile and those low allergen qualities.
Yeah, the Fel D1 story.
And mapped out the really crucial steps to finding one ethically and responsibly.
And we've seen how that natural resilience they started with is now being supported and much better understood through things like genetic research, and how dedicated ethical breeders are using that knowledge to make informed choices, really working to improve the breed's health and well-being long-term.
And we learned that while, hypoallergenic isn't quite the right word.
Not precisely, no.
The Siberians' unique genetic mutation really does often mean they produce significantly less of that common Fel D1 allergen, which makes them a potential option for many allergy sufferers, though. As the sources stressed, individual testing is always the gold standard advice.
Absolutely.
Plus, that amazing coat, while impressive, is surprisingly manageable with the right diet and just regular, not excessive grooming.
And the importance of responsible ownership just can't be overstated, can it? Thoroughly researching breeders, asking those hard questions, knowing the red flags.
And always remembering shelters and rescues as a fantastic source for wonderful companions, too.
Definitely.
It's just so clear that bringing a Siberian or any pet into your life is a big, rewarding commitment.
Yeah.
And being well-informed about all these different aspects is really the essential first step.
You know, what's truly fascinating here, I think, is this blend you see in the Siberian. This mix of ancient history and modern science coming together in one animal. The very traits that nature selected for over centuries, just for survival in the Siberian forest, are now being studied, understood, and thoughtfully preserved through genetics and careful breeding practices. It results in this companion animal that's kind of uniquely suited to share our lives today, but still carries that wild heritage.
Something to think about, isn't it? how the wild essence of a survivor cat can actually thrive right alongside us in our homes, thanks to this combination of nature's design and, well, responsible human effort.
It is indeed.
Well, thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of the Siberian cat. We really hope you found these nuggets of knowledge as captivating and useful as we did.